Okay, so I make that 2:30, so we're going to get started. So hello to everyone who's joined us. Thank you very much for sharing some of your time with us today. So I'm Emma from the Information Lab, and joining me is my colleague Andre, who's a solutions engineer with us. So Andre, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about
Yes.
what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Yeah, so I'm a solution engineer, which means I help all of our customers mainly in the pre-sales phase of when they purchase Tableau or Ultrix. And I then specifically focus on all the data management pieces and the embedding opportunities with Tableau.
Cool stuff. Yeah, so my name's Emma and I'm a customer success manager at the Information Lab. And for those of you that have not come across the Information Lab before, we are a Tableau and Ultrix partner, and we also work with AWS to install things like Tableau Server and Ultrix Server and things like that as well. We've got teams across Europe, and we've also run the data school as well. So you may have also heard of that brand. And so the webinar today is all going to be talking about data management. So data management is one of the data trends for 2020. So we've got a whole webinar series, which I'll talk a little bit more in a minute. And we're going to be here for about 30 minutes. So there's going to be a bit of me and Andre talking, and we're going to have some Q&A at the end as well. So for those of you who are watching, feel free to use the Q&A for asking questions. You can also use the chat as well. And we've got those open and we're keeping an eye on them. So please feel free to use them. This is being recorded and we'll publish it to our YouTube channel afterwards. So you can always share the recording with other people if you want to as well. So moving on, just to remind you that this is part of a webinar series. So we've had quite a few of them already. So you've seen me and my colleague Ravi, and also our other colleague Chris Love, do a few of these. These are mostly up on our YouTube channel already. So all the ones with the strike through have been done. So this one today is data management, and our next one is going to be on Thursday on governance and monitoring. And we've got a few more next week as well. So I'll pass over to Andre to start discussing about data management.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, the main question, what do we mean by data management? It's a bit of a broad term, data management. But yeah, if you go to the next slide, Emma, then what we have as kind of the definition, oh, go one back. I think you skipped one. By the way, yeah, there you go. We kind of discussed this and we thought, about a definition, and we kind of came up with this, where it's all about collecting, storing, but also communicating data. Now we will go in the next slide with the one that you already saw. We'll go a little bit more into the importance of data management. But we all know that data volumes and complexities of the data are like only growing like day by day. Now, what is really a bit of a danger when that is growing is that very often the connection between the data itself and the people in the business that need to work with it, that gap is only becoming bigger and bigger. So there's a bit of a problem, and that's why the products that we use, Tableau and Ultrix, both have data management tools in place. And that's also, for example, when we think about collecting data and storing data, that quite often goes together. We think about the data preparation tools that we use, like Tableau Prep Builder, and we have Ultrix, Ultrix Designer, of course. And they help you get the data in the right shape, but also in the right place. Now, after that, once that has taken place, you move to communicating data. Now, what we don't mean with communicating data is building visualizations and getting to insights, but it's more about the discovery element of data. How can we communicate data in such a way that it's easily discoverable by the users in the business? So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about why this is very important. Emma?
Yeah, so that was a great definition. You know, data management is about collecting, storing, and making our data accessible to the people that need to use it. So that's really important because having access to the right data allows business users to be able to answer their own questions. So you'll get faster speed to insight, and better business decisions, a quicker decision-making process. Can react a lot quicker to events, which is quite a good, quite an important thing at the moment. So having all of those things in place just enables business to work a little bit faster as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also think, because the second point is about good management moves towards self-service analytics. You probably, if you've ever been in a conversation about Tableau and Ultrix, you heard this word self-service analytics a lot. And that's basically related to the business users not being reliant on IT departments or departments that are in charge of that data. They actually own it. And now what we've seen over the last few years is that with Ultrix and Tableau, this is kind of being promoted on the visualization side of things, about also about getting to insights, but not really the step before you have and get to that data. And that's now with data management becoming more and more important. So once you move data management also to the self-service analytic piece, you have less bottlenecks. You don't have to ask IT or someone else to get you to the data, especially in the current climate where everyone is a remote worker. It's important that you can easily get to the data, and that having to call or use a Zoom meeting to get to someone is less of a bottleneck.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think of the example, for example, if someone works in marketing and they need to find out, how successful their latest campaign has been. And I just think of all the different varieties of data sources that could be used in that decision making. So you might have something like a marketing tool that sends out all the emails for you, something like MailChimp, and that collects its own statistics about who's opened what emails. But that isn't enough to make any sort of good decisions about whether or not that's been a good campaign. You need to pull in like your CRM data, like for more information about those customers. You might need to pull in sales data to see what they actually bought, because of these emails and the things that they clicked on. So, all of these data sources are so disparate, they could be across many different systems. And the idea with data management is, you're curating those data sources. So ideally, those data sources are easily linked together or already in one data set somewhere, and the marketing team can just access it without having to go and ask for it to all to be pulled together all the time. And because of that, it's more trustworthy, because that source has already been curated, or people know where to go and get it. They know who owns that data. They know how up to date it is and how it's, has it been refreshed recently. It makes those decisions that come from the data more trustworthy as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, going from the trust in the data to compliance is like a small step, of course. Because if we think about, as Emma mentioned, about data management and data lineage, this kind of encompasses the whole life cycle of what we call a data asset. So when data is being created, so that might be, like Emma said, with MailChimp, all the way to actually, sometimes they call it the retirement of the data. That's where it's being visualized and insights have been taken out of it. That whole process, there's so many. Yeah, am I still here? I think my internet dropped out.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, it says my internet connections and stuff. I saw it dropping. But yeah, going that whole process from when data is being created all the way when data is being used, there's so many steps involved. So it's very important that for compliance reasons, and especially in certain industries like in the finance industries and legal industries, it's important that you have all of those steps easily documented. And there are lots of data cataloging and data management tools out there that can help you with that. So yes, the tools for data management. Well, Emma mentioned we focus primarily on Tableau, Ultrix. We do a little bit of AWS as well. So if we think about the data management tools from the Tableau side, we have this one, which is the Tableau certified data sources. Now, hopefully this is for people that have been using Tableau for a while, not a new thing. This bit has been in Tableau since Tableau version 10.4, where you can certify data sources. Certified data sources are a way to actually say, Ravi, as an example here, says this is a good data source. So that means that you can contact Ravi or the rest of his BI team to ask questions about the data. So this is a great way for people, and they can use this on Tableau Server as well. So you can filter for certified data sources, and also certified data sources on Tableau Server are always showing up first in the search results. So we see the big search box on the top of this screen. If you search something in Tableau and it's you search for a data source, you will first see the certified data sources that match your search results. So that's why it's important to have these in place.
Yeah, and it's also important here to note as well that only certain people can certify the data sources on Tableau Server. So again, it just, you know, encompasses all those things that we've just been talking about. So, you know, it's trust, it's ownership, it's making it searchable and easy to access, and people know that, you know, that is the trusted source that I should go to for, you know, this type of data. All really good points. And another tool that's recently come out from Tableau is Tableau Catalog. Now, I should point out that this is part of the data management add-on. So it's not just in the base product for Tableau Server. It is an add-on that has an additional kind of license cost to it. But I've been working with some customers that have been using it, and it is a really powerful tool. So with the data catalog, it basically consumes all of the metadata and information about all the data sources that are published to your Tableau server. So either published as individual data sources or embedded in workbooks. And it puts all this together into a catalog, which again is searchable, and you can add in like descriptions and owners. It can tell you when things have been updated and refreshed. And it also gives you that lineage. So on the right hand side of the screen, you'll see that, you know, this is a database table. You can go back and see what database it's in. You can see any data sources that have been published to the Tableau server that are based on this table. You can also see what workbooks are connected to it, and, you know, who the owners are that have published anything relating to this data source as well. So it's really good for that lineage piece of, if I change this data source, what's going to happen to what's going to be affected to whatever is connected to this.
Yeah, so this is the lineage piece is, even though the image on the right hand side looks very linear, so you go from databases all the way down to owners, but it's not an interactive PowerPoint. But if we would have clicked on owners here, we would have then also seen the owners and their related content. So it's almost like a network graph. And what is very good about this data management lineage piece is that this is integrated in Tableau Server. So you don't need a separate tool that looks a lot different than Tableau Server. You have this embedded in Tableau Server. Everyone's already familiar with the interface, and there's just one simple login. Nor does your IT department have to manage this in-house.
Yeah, that's some great points as well. And, you know, all of these things that you can see, like the descriptions, you know, they're all editable as well. So, you know, it's got customer key. This is unique to every customer. So it means that the data literacy piece to understanding what the fields mean and being able to connect to this data is a lot easier as well, because you're able to like go and describe all the metadata about this, you know, this data connection, and it's searchable. People can search it. And then when you go and use ask data in Tableau, you know, all of these descriptions are used in ask data. So when you actually type in your natural language question, you're able to see all of this information surfaced in that as well.
Mm-hmm. What I also like about these fields is that they show everything in your Tableau data source, including your calculations. So it's a great way where you can audit your calculations and see, hey, this calculation, it's been used in this sheet and it's actually doing this. So it's a good way to see if users are like using your calculations, because your calculations are of course added to the data source in Tableau.
Yeah, that's another great point, because that's been a bit of a mystery before data catalog, you know, is You know, what calculations are being used, where are they being used in multiple places. So that is a big kind of like missing link that this has kind of fixed for a lot of Tableau users as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, should we move on to the next one?
Sure. That's the data quality warnings. Yes, because we already talked about the certified data sources. But the thing with certified data source, it's what they call a Boolean, right? You're either certified or you're not. And certified data sources also keep things positive. So that means like it's certified. Well, it's good, but if you're not certified, what are you? Are you in development? Do you have problems? You don't really know. So if you think about the data quality warnings, and this again is part of that data management add-on, you can set and enable warnings for people, because data, as we know, data is always what we call in transit, right? It's always changing. No one has like a static file somewhere stored on the server, and that's the only data they use, and it's never changing. Now, if data changes, you can set like quick warnings, say like, hey, this data has some issues to it. Underneath the dropdown, there's a box where you have 4,000 characters, as I can see, to type your warning. And you can say, for example, hey, our data source is at the moment under maintenance. So that means that you can make it a certified data source, but you can also say, hey, this is under maintenance. We're doing some data preparation work. And once you're finished, you remove the enable warning tick mark.
Yeah, I think that's really important for a lot of enterprises as well, because, you know, things do go into maintenance. Maybe data hasn't loaded at the time it should have loaded, so it's, you know, it's stale data. So I think they're all like really important things to make people aware of when they're connecting to their data as well. So let's have a look at the next one. So we're going to also discuss like published data sources. So with Tableau Server, you can publish data sources, live or extracts, and then other users can connect to them. So if you're a creator, you can, you know, open the desktop product and then go to Tableau Server connection. If you're an explorer in the web, you can actually do like web edit and connect to data sources and start new workbooks or edit existing ones if you've got the right permissions. So actually your Tableau server becomes a data repository. It becomes a place where people go to connect to data. So explorers can then you know, easily access data that maybe they wouldn't have access to because they don't have the desktop product of Tableau installed. So it opens the net to, you know, a wider net for people to come and use data that may not have been able to connect to data sources previously.
Yes, and in addition to that, lots of the data sources that are stored on Tableau Server are Tableau's hyperfiles. So that's the Tableau's proprietary extract file. Probably the fastest and best option if you work with data in Tableau. And those hyperfiles, like in Tableau Prep Builder, you can directly connect to those and still do preparation on top of that. So the good thing is that even though it's a published data source, you can still work with it. And the same is happening in Tableau Desktop, because you can also connect to it. So kind of that whole loop of having the data on the server, still being able to prepare it, but then also being able to analyze it.
Yeah. And because things are on Tableau Server as well, like underneath Tableau Server is the repository. So that's the PostgreSQL database that you can connect to. So you can connect to that in Tableau Desktop, for example, and do some analysis on everything that's kind of been happening. Everything that's been clicked on in the server is recorded. So you can have a look through all of the connections to the data sources. You can have a look at sessions that have included the web edit. So you can really monitor, you know, who's accessing what. So if you do have things that you have to report on for compliance, or you just want to monitor, you know, who is actually accessing data, who might need some more training and learn how to access it. All of those things can be tracked using the Tableau Server repository as well.
Yeah, in addition to the Postgres repository, Tableau released at the end of last year, it released a new API called the Metadata API. And the metadata API is basically what powers the data catalog. So that's the whole lineage piece. It is using parts of this PostgreSQL database, but also other databases, which you've previously not had access to. This metadata API is, you can access it without the data management add-on. It's something you need to enable. And if people are interested in that, I can send them some more information around that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, and again, another brand new way that we can monitor what's going on server. So using it as a data repository is, you know, is just kind of an obvious thing to do now. And as we discussed before, like the data management add-on can show you the lineage of everything as well. So if you do have the add-on and you use your Tableau server as your kind of repository for where people go to connect you to your data, then you can start seeing, you know, what is made from what data sources, who's accessing those data sources. So it becomes a lot easier to monitor who has access to what.
Yeah, and now the data management part is also a little bit in Tableau desktop. So if you connect to a published data source, you will get a lot more metadata. So the data about the data in Tableau desktop, which is something you didn't have previously. So you get those data quality warnings as well in Tableau desktop.
Cool. Right, so let's discuss Ultrix.
Yes, Ultrix. So Ultrix, it has a separate product which it released a few years ago around data cataloging. In the Information Lab, we're not actively using that one, but we already think that the core products that Ultrix offers, like Designer and Server, should already get you up to speed with data management a lot quicker. So with the Designer product, you can clean, you can transform, you can curate your data sources. And that can basically be from anywhere. Ultrix can connect to a whole host of different data sources. And you can also, even though it's the last bullet point here, you can also publish those data sources straight from Designer into Tableau Server. So yeah, we think the Designer product itself is great because it's all drag and drop, similar to Tableau. There's no coding involved, so you can really audit what's going on with the actual workflow that you're building and where the data kind of streams through. We see lots of people making use of different annotation tools in Ultrix Designer, and all of those can also be extracted and be further analyzed.
Yeah, it's a great point. The fact that, you know, because it's a drag and drop interface, it's very visual. You don't have to learn any code, but it does mean that it kind of like auto documents as you go through it. And, you know, there is, you know, annotation tools, like you said, to document what's happening in the workflow. So what changes are being made to the data as you go through. So I think they're really important things for like data management, because it's quite often that you'll have to pass that process on to someone else if someone leaves the company or just changes position. You know, it's so easy for these data processes to be lost if someone leaves. So having something documented is really useful.
Yeah. That actually brings us to the Ultrix server piece as well, because once you're happy with your workflow and your work in Designer, you can then move it and automate that into a server environment. So that allows you to further automate the whole process of cleaning and preparing data and pushing it into the right direction, which is often the Tableau server. And what we quite often do at the Information Lab is set up similar to in Tableau, where you have the data quality warnings, set up like data checks. So in Design, what you can do is you can use the emailing tool, and the emailing tool allows you to email, for example, when an error shows up or when a workflow has been successfully published. And those are fully automatic, of course. So you can set that up in the gallery. And you can also share on the gallery some of the analytical applications and macros. And they should definitely speed up the process of working with data, because with macros, you kind of reusing someone else's logic. And once you publish those in Ultrix Gallery, you should make sure that these are certified macros and people can use them. We have quite a few on our server where people use macros, and those macros are like built by people that we know and we certify. And then it speeds up the process of connecting and getting the right data really quickly.
Yeah, I think the macros and apps is a really important part of Ultrix. I think that's kind of what it sets it apart as well, in the fact that, you know, these repeatable processes can be shortened into a macro and reused in other workflows. So you're not having to like do the same layout of tools every single time to do this piece of work every single time. And with the apps as well, you know, on the server interface, you could get someone to input an Excel file or something like that and automatically do some transformation. So it's kind of opening up kind of like ETL work to people that don't know that they're doing ETL work. They're just uploading a file to somewhere and it spits out the data in the right format that they need. So I think all of those things, you know, one of the points we talked about is making things self-service. So that this is a, you know, another great way of making all those sorts of things self-service as well.
Cool. Shall we, what is it? It's like 5 minutes left.
Yeah. So I think we should, hand over to the audience. And if you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A. And then we can mark them as answered. So we've got one question here from Elena. Can the metadata API be used if we have Tableau online?
Yes, they can. They can use the Tableau metadata API. It's enabled by default. If you send me an email or contact me on Twitter or something, I can give you a little bit more information around how to access it. So yeah, that's good.
Good stuff. So next question from Ramesh. Does Ultrix allow us to connect to Tableau server to do the ETL designer work and publish back to server? So I'm guessing that's using Ultrix to connect to published data sources in Tableau server.
Yeah, I don't, at the moment that's not available. It is probably somewhere on the roadmap on someone's roadmap. But it is, you are able to do that in Tableau Prep Builder already. So not in Ultrix, but in Tableau Prep.
Yeah, perfect. So Andy has a question: Ultrix Connect Data Catalog, Tableau Catalog, or Azure Data Catalog, which is best? And let's say that cost is not a factor. So I've never used the Azure Data Catalog, so I wouldn't be sure on that one. Ultrix Connect versus Tableau. So I guess the remit for those is slightly different. So Ultrix Connect can actually connect to databases outside of like the Ultrix sphere, and it will also show you, you know, where different Ultrix workflows connect to those databases. But it will also surface what's on your Tableau server as well. Because the Connect data catalog can connect to Tableau server, whereas the Tableau catalog is literally just for, at the moment, it's for what is published on your Tableau server. So I guess the remit might point you into the direction that you're kind of looking for. What about you, Andre?
Yeah, I would. Tableau catalog is great because it indexes your whole Tableau server, and Ultrix Connect, you need to set up all of the loaders yourself. So that is one of the kind of the upfront costs that you need to do, because in Tableau you just enable it and it does its own work, and Ultrix I can't talk about Azure. I've never used Azure.
Cool. Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Andy. So Steve, is there a way to automate or script the details that go into the certified data source description, so update with details from a workflow?
I'm not sure if Steve means with the workflow, if he means an Ultrix workflow. It is something I could see if I can figure out, because you should be able to do something with the REST API. So with the Tableau REST API, you can do all kinds of kind of user management, content management, and I think this should be one of them. But I can have a look after the webinar if that's one of the endpoints.
Okay, so question from Lars: at what complexity should I use Ultrix instead of Tableau Prep? That is getting more and more difficult to answer as Prep releases more and more features. I think with the Information Lab would say that, you know, Ultrix Designer for really common ETL, so just cleaning up data and maybe reshaping it, is you know, maybe that's when you would use prep for those sorts of things. Ultrix, you can obviously connect to a lot of different data types. You can also do like in database work as well, but Ultrix comes with a few features that that prep doesn't. So it has like the spatial tools that you might not find in prep, and you've got all the predictive tools as well for Ultrix. So it depends what kind of work that you want to do. So if you just want to do some really basic cleaning, joining, and maybe a little bit of pivoting or transforming, then prep would be the way to go, because it's a lower price point as well. But if you've got some really you know, some features that you might want to use, spatial or predictive, or you want to do stuff in, you know, on the database, or you've got, you know, some outputs that prep doesn't have, so it can only output to kind of server or hyper files, so that's something to take into account, where Ultrix can output to a lot of things as well.
Yeah.
Anything you'd add?
Yeah, I would also add like web-based data sources. Ultrix makes it fairly trivial to connect to APIs, if you understand the documentation, and then that's at the moment not really possible out of the box with Tableau Prep.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So moving on to Richard, what tools, if any, exist in the tools for ensuring consistency of coding, for example, country codes across different data sets?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, in Tableau Prep, you can now, Tableau Prep Builder, you can now set up custom fields. And those custom fields you can use to basically, we use it for our email address. And so it's kind of a little bit of fuzzy matching style, where it's, you set up the email address and then you can kind of use that on a particular column. So I would look for custom fields in Tableau Prep Builder.
Yeah, and I guess maybe a way that you could also think about it is to have like a master list of these country codes, and then just use like the usual join function, and where stuff doesn't match, you know, you've got potential conflicts of the codes or extra codes that have been added without being in the master list or something like that. So perhaps just like regular joining to a master list would also highlight those discrepancies as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And last question here from Will. So what if we have both Power BI and Tableau in the same organization? How best should we approach the data management as a whole?
Interesting. I've not used Power BI, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a tricky one. So if you're thinking of Tableau catalog, then that isn't going to incorporate what you've got on your Power BI, you know, server, for example. But I guess that the key part about data management is the collecting, storing, and accessibility of that data. So if you know that you've got both tools in the organization, and that is really common across lots of different places of work, then, you know, if everyone knows how to access the data, you might have to, you know, think about, well, we're not going to publish it to Tableau server then, you know, because the Power BI users won't be able to connect to it, or we'll publish it, but we'll make sure it's, you know, a copy of what's in the database or something like that. You might have to take a step backwards and think about, you know, how people can easily connect to databases and know where that is, or use a different cataloging tool so people can go and find out how to connect to it. I think that would be what I would suggest. Okay, so we're a little bit over, so we'll finish those questions there. So thank you for everyone that's come to watch today. We do have a few more of these webinars available as well. So the next one is Thursday afternoon, again at 2:30, on governance and monitoring. That's with myself and Ravi. I want to say a big thank you to Andre for helping out today and bringing some expert knowledge to the call. And I hope everyone has a good day, and this will be uploaded to YouTube as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.